in Sheraton.
Okay, I have 10 o'clock, so I think we'll go ahead and get started here. Good morning and welcome to ICOF Quarterly Peer Learning Call. I'm Michelle Wallstrom, the Community Foundation Services Coordinator for ICOF. Thank you for joining us today to hear from some of your colleagues about their work to help nonprofits grow their endowments at their community foundations. So before we get started, I do want to provide a few reminders of upcoming events and important deadlines for community foundations. The ICOF is currently accepting pre-applications for the Spring Capacity Building Grant Program. If you're interested, the link to the online pre-application can be found on our website under the Community Foundations tab, and then from there you click on Grant Opportunities. These pre-applications are accepted from now through March 1st, and they are reviewed then on a rolling basis. Final applications are due April 1st, with grant award notifications being delivered before May 1st. And I also want to direct you to the Events tab on the ICOF website as well, where you can find information about upcoming educational opportunities and trainings, which include a one-day planned giving course that's being offered in 2 locations for your convenience, one in Dubuque and one in Des Moines. And in addition, we're also offering the Community Foundation Boot Camp this spring, which will be hosted in conjunction with the Indiana Philanthropy Alliance. And that's on May 22nd and 23rd in Altoona, which is just right outside of Des Moines. And please feel free to reach out to me with any questions about this grant opportunity or any of our upcoming learning opportunities too. So now let's get started. Hold on one second here. During today's call, we will hear from 4 colleagues sharing strategies that they've found effective to assist nonprofits in their communities with their endowment building. So on our call today, we will hear from Jenna Manders, who's Knowledge Management Director, and Wendy Sweeney, Nonprofit Partnership Coordinator at the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque. And they will share with us about several initiatives they have to engage their nonprofits in endowment building, which include mini trainings for their nonprofits, an endowment building toolkit, and their Great Give Day. Then Elizabeth Hackbarth, Director of Development at the Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa, will talk about some of the work they've done around planned giving in nonprofit endowments recently. And then finally, Rebecca Crone, Executive Director with the Siouxland Community Foundation, will share with us how they worked with nonprofits on their successful Give Day last year. So we'll have each of our speakers share their information in successive order, and then we'll open the call for participants to ask questions. I think this time around we'll do questions right after speakers talk, so they're kind of fresh in your mind. So I'll ask for questions right after each speaker, and then again at the end if you have sort of an overall question for everyone. As a courtesy, please mute your phone while someone is talking, and then obviously unmute it to ask your question and or if you want to add to the discussion in any way. And then please also identify yourself and your community foundation when you first speak. So with that, I'll turn the call over to Jenna and Wendy to get us started.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. Like she said, this is Wendy. I'm the Nonprofit Partnership Coordinator here at the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque. And we, just so everyone has a better idea, we serve 250 different nonprofit endowment funds. And like Michelle mentioned, we do offer a variety of different resources for nonprofits to build those endowment funds. Those include our Endowment Building Toolkit, which is a training that we can offer for them. Great Give Day. We also offer different brochures. We create the brochures for our endowment funds. We also have a section of our website called the Giving Center, where we showcase all the different nonprofits that have funds with us. We also feature each nonprofit endowment fund in our annual letter, And we have a variety of other trainings in addition to the endowment building toolkit throughout the year. And so I'll kind of highlight some of those things. But so specifically the endowment building toolkit is a training that we developed a number of years ago with a few of our colleagues here. And really it is a 3-month process that we work through with nonprofits. It's really meant to be a comprehensive and really a deep dive into endowment building. And so we work with the staff or the volunteers who are really dedicated to this cause. We build a timeline with them as far as where they hope to go, and then we kind of prep the staff person on how the process should go. We get the entire board together and kind of on board with this process, and then we talk to the board about making sure that the board is participating and making their own endowment gift, because that is really key in being able to encourage them to go out and make further asks by encouraging, if they've made their own gift, it's a lot easier for them to ask for additional gifts. We work with the nonprofit to help them identify their donor prospects, so the nonprofits come up with that list, and we can help facilitate that. We work with them to draft a letter, and then we go through the training. And so I think in theory the training should be almost 2 different days. One is like prep for working with the board, and then the second is the working with the board itself. And then we encourage, when we do the training with the board, we encourage them to then go out and make those asks to people that they know in the community who have the capacity to make a gift to the endowment fund. A lot of times organizations will focus on the number of gifts that should be made as opposed to we want to raise $500,000 because it's really an educational piece, but also we want to make sure we touch as many donors as possible. The other thing that I focus my time on is Great Give Day. And so Great Give Day is our 24-hour online giving event. I'm actually really interested to hear what Rebecca has to say about their giving day. But we allow our nonprofits, well, first of all, you have to have an endowment fund with us in order to participate in Great Give Day. And then we allow them to choose whether they want to take the gifts that they receive that day as a payout or if they want to build their endowment fund with those gifts. And so last year, 61% of the nonprofits who participated in Great Give Day chose to put their money into endowment. That accounted for about 40-ish% of the gifts that we received in total that day. But the other piece of it is that we solicit prize money, and the prize money is then restricted into endowment. So Great Day is a win-win for a lot of different organizations because we allow them to take the gifts they receive from donors as a payout. So if they're putting on a new roof or whatever that looks like, they can take that as a payout. And then any prize money that they win will automatically go into their endowment. So they're building the endowment and paying for a project at the same time. There's no cost for nonprofits to participate in Great Give Day. I mean, there is a credit card fee, but that's not an upfront cost to them. So really, it's an easy way for them to build their endowment fund. Jenna?
So as Wendy mentioned, we have our large endowment building toolkit, which really is a pretty intensive process and takes the full 3 months. So last year we had applied for a ICOF capacity building grant to pilot a mini version of that. Our pilot, we worked with 2 nonprofits specifically. It was a much shorter process. We did a 1-hour training with a group of 5 to 7 members from each committee, and then we helped them with letters. They identified their own donors, but we helped them write a letter and then merge and sign and mail that letter. And we encouraged them to follow up with the people we sent the letters to, but we didn't necessarily push that. So whereas our first endowment building toolkit that Wendy had talked about raised $84,000 and also led to 3 legacy gifts, one of which was about $500,000. What we were able to see for immediate results from our miniature campaign was the fund that had typically raised about $500 at the end of every year raised more than $5,000 this year for their endowment. So we were pretty excited with those results. And I think one of the things that really differentiated is we were able to educate those groups on the ability to accept complex gifts. So I know specifically for the two funds, both of them had IRA rollovers and weren't able and had never realized how those exactly worked. So I think that was a key piece to them. And then I'll touch on some of the questions that Michelle asked us to answer. How do you know if an agency is ready for endowment building? For us, most of our organizations have reached out to us in some capacity. And I would say kind of if you give us an inch, we'll take a mile. If they reach out to us for any specific kind of trainings or fundraising or anything of that nature, we're always going to encourage them to build their endowment. And I would say we keep pretty good tabs on our nonprofit partners. As Wendy mentioned, we had 250 nonprofits, and Wendy works more so with all the nonprofits here in Dubuque. And then we have somebody assigned to each affiliate within our region, and they keep pretty good tabs on our nonprofits and are always encouraging them to grow. So I think that's all we have to share and are open for any questions.
Thanks, Jenna and Wendy. I'll just reiterate that if anybody has any questions specifically to some of the topics that they discussed or the toolkit or their give day, their trainings, feel free to ask them now.
This is Kelly over with the Community Foundation of Greater Muscatine. Hi. What do you include in your toolkits?
I don't even know how many pages the book is.
Yeah.
It's probably like a 60-page manual, and it walks through how to build a donor list, how to design a letter, how to design a case statement, how to make follow-up calls, what the exact timing should be, how to assign board members. So it's really a full manual that walks them through this step-by-step process.
Yeah, and the training itself is a couple hours at a minimum, and we go through everything from reminding them exactly what endowment is and why that's important to how can you talk about it with your donors to practicing a donor visit with each other. So it's pretty intensive, but I know that everyone I've talked to that goes through the process feels a lot better about it going through the training before they go to ask people for gifts, because a lot of times we're working with those volunteers who have never made a ask before, and so it's always been well received from my experience. But yeah, there's a lot of information in it.
Jenna and Wendy, this is Elizabeth from the Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa. I love this endowment building toolkit, and you were talking about a total timeline, maybe like 3-month commitment. How often do you say you are meeting with that nonprofit, like face-to-face, during that 3 months?
I would say the whole process is more intensive for us at the beginning and helping them get started. And so it's probably meeting with that staff person a couple of times, then doing the training, and then maybe a follow-up visit with us. But really the time commitment for the 3 months is the volunteers going out and making those asks. So usually, and when we go to the training, we have the letter ready to go. So basically the volunteers sign it and mail it that next day. And then we tell the volunteers you have to make your follow-ups, within a week, and then do the visit within a month or so of sending the letter. So I think it's more the organization experiences it longer than. Does that make sense, Jenna?
And I would also add that a lot of it, yes, there are multiple in-person meetings, but we do a lot of email communication. Even when we did the mini endowment building toolkit, we really lean in helping them write that letter, working with the donor list to clean it up, pushing them on different things. So I would say there's a lot more communications too that we probably haven't done as great a time tracking happening via phone and email.
I love that you're doing not only the training, but you're also providing, the actual resource or helping them with that letter and the tool, because as what I was going to share soon here, sometimes it's just the nonprofits don't know how to articulate the endowment, and that's what we do every day. So that's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah.
Jenna and Wendy, this is Michelle, and I'm just wondering, are you going to continue to do the mini trainings after sort of the pilot program, or did you decide to go a different route with those in the upcoming years?
Yeah, so one of the things that I guess we didn't mention is that for the full endowment building toolkit, we charge for that. And one of the reasons we wanted to develop the mini endowment building toolkit is I think the full endowment building toolkit is $2,500, kind of all-inclusive, and then there's like a $1,000 level. So for some of our nonprofits that just need that little bump in their endowment, that definitely didn't make sense for them. So we definitely plan to continue the mini version, and we're actually right now trying to assess we're in the process of potentially decreasing our spending policy. So I think our nonprofits will take that'll impact them most. So how we can leverage that mini version of the endowment building toolkit to help them grow their endowments this year and maybe not take as hard of a hit on that decrease in spending policy. So we're working through that currently.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's good to know. Okay, I think we'll switch over now to Elizabeth to talk with us about their work with nonprofits. Elizabeth?
Hi there. So again, Elizabeth Hackbarth with the Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa. I'm the Director of Development. We serve 20 counties in Northeast Iowa. So our portfolio for nonprofit endowments is over 200 different agency funds. 25% of all of our assets are in nonprofit agency funds. It's actually like the largest, if you think of all the different fund types we have, the largest percentage. So it is important to us. We definitely believe it's a very important group to help cultivate and grow. In fact, even as a Director of Development, one of my whole goals is just centered around nonprofit funds to help grow and cultivate them. So I love this topic. I'm interested in learning more, but I did kind of categorize my comments based on Michelle's thoughtful questions that she wanted us to hit on. And the first one was ways that we engage nonprofits. And the first thing that I thought of is that Community Foundation Northeast Iowa has had a long-standing incentive program. So for nonprofits that are just starting an endowment fund, or maybe it's a very low balance, it was started, years and years ago, but it's a low balance, we will work with them to help grow their endowment, and then if they can raise $90,000 within 3 years' time, we will kick in a $10,000 incentive grant to get their fund to $100,000. So we've had many nonprofits that have taken us up on that incentive program, and it's worked well for those that are ready to, kick off an endowment building campaign, I guess. Also, in the last couple of years, we did hold a workshop, and we invited existing fund holders of the Community Foundation to come. And out of that, I just wanted to share two big takeaways that I think all of our nonprofits had from that workshop. And really the workshop was just best practices in endowment building, how we can partner with you, was gift acceptance policies and creating either a policy or a statement that estate gifts or unrestricted gifts would help feed their endowment. And then also at the Community Foundation Northeast Iowa, we offer not only permanent endowment funds for nonprofits, but quasi-endowments as well as expendable, which just means pass-through or semi-permanent, that gives them a little bit more flexibility. And I think that was a big takeaway, just to even learn the differences and maybe the opportunities to have both or multiple. So I think a takeaway from that workshop were those highlights. And then currently right now through an ICOF capacity grant, we really are looking at our planned giving program and how we can get more resources out to our nonprofits. So a little bit different than an endowment building toolkit, we're developing a planned giving toolkit for our nonprofits. I think it was identified through many local nonprofits in our region that they don't even have a planned giving program at all. They're not asking for estate gifts. and endowment, I think, is wrapped up into that. So we're looking at some toolkits, actual templates and resources that they can easily replicate to start that conversation with their donors and stakeholders. Let's see. Most of the nonprofits, I just wrote a little note to myself that most nonprofits, when you're working with them with endowment building, they'll ask how the foundation can help promote their fund. So similar to Dubuque, what Jenna had mentioned, our community foundation really does try hard to highlight those nonprofit agency funds through different lists on our website and also in emails to donors. I think IRA gifts are great to put into existing nonprofit agency funds. Marketing checklists as well as templates for how they can just copy and paste language into a newsletter or into a PO letter about their endowment fund. It's easy for us to do because we talk about endowments every day, but their marketing department or staff may not know how to best craft that message. So how do you know if an agency is ready? I do believe that not every nonprofit is ready for endowment building, maybe right at this time, but I just put down some key identifiers based on my experience, and I have a list of about 5 or 6 of them. So I think if it's a well-established nonprofit, they don't have an endowment fund yet, or they're looking to launch a capital campaign, could be a great position to start a nonprofit agency fund. Do they even have a donor database? I've come across working with some. They were gifted a nonprofit fund through a lead gift or something that's wonderful, but they're just not even positioned to even have a group of people to reach out to. If they do have a donor database, are they tracking the age of their donors? I think that's a big step up, so then they can start cultivating those complex gifts like Jenna was talking about, IRAs, stock. Do they have an annual fund? Or are they even fundraising? If they aren't, or if they don't, start with their board and their board contacts, maybe past key volunteers, and build from there. Is their funding changing due to federal or state contracts? If so, and they're receiving cuts, it could be a good opportunity to work on endowment building. Maybe they have some external investments like CDs that aren't really earning a high investment return, so they could be positioned to easily transfer some of those assets. Are they a regular grantee of the foundation? If they're applying for grants every year and they don't have an endowment with you, that's a great relationship because you already have one started. I was just going to share a quick example. Last year, I think it was, we partnered with the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Cedar Valley here in Waterloo. They were embarking on a major capital campaign, and included in that capital campaign was a focus to grow their endowment fund. And that was just awesome that their board thought it was important to include the endowment. Whenever you launch a capital campaign, you're thinking long-term. And if you're investing in a new building or expanded program, you want your endowment to be strong as well. So what we decided to do to incentivize their organization is that we offered a $50,000 dollar-for-dollar match. If they could raise $50,000 to their small endowment fund that was started years ago, we would contribute $50,000. And it was a successful match. I think matches, whether it's through the foundation or if we could connect them with another donor-advised fund holder, another donor, are great ways to ramp up an endowment building campaign. And how to approach nonprofits in getting this conversation started. I really do think just meeting face-to-face with a lead staff person, depending on what the nonprofit is, who that person would be different. But in that meeting, you can really uncover some organizational needs, maybe their strategic goals. And then out of that meeting, definitely offer to present at a board meeting, because that's where you can really, as the expert, answer all their questions. If you can identify a board champion, someone to voice their support in front of the other board members, that's been very helpful as well. It could really be a variety of people. It could be their treasurer, the board treasurer, or maybe just someone with a financial background. maybe it's a board member that's already connected to the foundation, so they're a fund holder, a donor, that can really speak to the foundation's professional for fiduciary oversight. I think that's great to have as a voice around the table. So I will just say that overall, the Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa loves to partner with our nonprofit agencies, and we have a banner in our community room, and it says Mission Partner. And I do really think that it perfectly describes how our foundation supports nonprofits through endowment building. And I was just going to leave this, that I do have a couple of resources. If anyone's interested, I could share. Our marketing team developed some campaign materials for that Boys and Girls Club match, so I could share those. Also, our incentive program, that $10,000 for reaching $90,000 in new gifts, I could share that application and the guidelines for that as well. So with that, I'm just going to pause. Those were the notes that I had wrote down, and ask if there's any questions that I could help answer.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, this is Michelle. I think you provided a really good overview of the work that you're doing. It's nice to have the checklist and learn more about the incentive programs that you're offering to your nonprofits. And if you want to send me those two items, the campaign materials and the application for your incentive program, I can distribute those out to everybody that's on the call later today.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Michelle. I just think that overall, we can help nonprofits articulate the endowment and the importance of it and all the different ways of giving. So when we can put that in writing for them and they can use it as templates or as resources, it makes their job easier. And then really, it's a win-win. I think we should be helping our nonprofits grow their endowments over time. And if they're out there working with their donors, matching them up with the community foundation, it really does accelerate, their capacity of what they can offer through their mission. So thank you.
Yes, agreed. All good information and true. We'll switch now to Rebecca Crone with the Siouxland Community Foundation to talk about their work with nonprofits and their Give Day last year. Rebecca? Rebecca, are you on the call? Well, maybe she was unable to make the call. I didn't get a note from her, but so instead then we'll just switch over to see if anybody has any last questions or thoughts or ideas that you'd like to share that maybe weren't mentioned among the speakers this morning, something that you're doing in your organization that you think others could benefit from just knowing about or expanding on a little bit. If there's anybody that has anything, any discussion items or questions now.
Hi, this is Donna Dostal from the Potawatomi County Community Foundation. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Donna.
Okay, great. I have a question, and maybe one of the panelists, and I did get a little bit of information from the CEO listserv, but we have a nonprofit here locally that we've been working with, and they're one of our grant recipients, and we were talking about having a discussion with them about building an endowment with us. And one of the things that they said was that they work with a couple of funders that frown on the fact that an organization would have an endowment. Have you dealt with that with other nonprofits where they've been trying to seek funds and some funders say, well, if you have an endowment, we're not going to fund you? How do you help them deal with that kind of a response?
This is Jenna from the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque. I don't know that this is necessarily your best answer, but one of the benefits of working with the Community Foundation is if they if they start their endowment themselves, they still have to keep it as a asset on their books. However, if a donor starts it, we would use like a designated fund, and that's actually not their asset. We have all of the variance power over those assets. So they don't necessarily have to record that as their endowment. So that would be my response, is if it's all donor funds, then they actually, well, yes, you would have an endowment that benefits them. They don't have an endowment.
That's a great answer. Thank you. And that, as a matter of fact, that addresses exactly the discussion that we were having with them. Thank you, Jenna. It's great to talk to you, by the way.
Good, thanks. Anybody else with questions or something they want to offer that your community foundation does with nonprofits and endowment building?
This is Kelly over the Community Foundation of Greater Muscatine. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. I've noticed in my notes here, just off of the conversation that's happened today, I'm hearing a lot about kind of thrown in there every once in a while is an incentive package, maybe some matching granting going on. What drives you, and anyone can answer this, to where you're setting the limits on these incentive packages or programs? Is that just something that maybe comes from the board or directive from the board, or is that something that you have some sort of statistics to go off of that seem to work?
Hi, this is Elizabeth from the Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa. I would be happy to follow up with you on that because I actually do believe it's just been something that's been a long-standing incentive program at the Community Foundation. Since there has been success with the incentive program, we haven't changed it.
Okay.
But basically through our Community Foundation, we do have some dollars set aside in our budget that we call mission fulfillment and just, helping our organizations and nonprofits be successful. And so we have so much money set aside that we could put towards these incentives every year. And we really aren't, I don't think there's been a year where we've had all 8, we have enough, I think, to offer like 8 different 10,000 incentives right now, but I don't even think we've had a year where all 8 are being worked on or even achieved in a given year. But I think it's just something that we think is so important that we've, as a board, dedicated some budget money from, and I don't know if it's really like based on a statistic, but just over the years, it's been a successful incentive, so we continue to offer it. The $50,000 match for the Boys and Girls Club was a conversation with the Boys and Girls Club to reach an obtainable goal. So it was a case that was just a special campaign.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions or items to share with the group?
Hey, this is Rebecca in Sioux City.
Hi.
I apologize for being late.
That's okay. If you'd like to just share now about Give Day with our group, that would be great.
Sure. Basically, with the Siouxland Big Give, we solicited agencies. We ended up having 102 organizations participate. We really went through the not-for-profit list in Siouxland and offered a one-day of giving, which ended up being October 9th. On October 9th, in preparation for that, we had a social media expert do a training so that agencies were aware of how to communicate and how to market their organization along with this particular day. And we had probably about a dozen organizations raise dollars specifically for their endowment funds that are held at the Community Foundation. But there were all sorts of projects. It didn't have to be tied to endowment, but some chose to make it a project toward endowment. And we really went out with a not-for-profit list and marketed them to join. We had a donor that underwrote all of the fees for them to participate. And so it was really easy for them. All they had to do was go out in social media, market their organization, market that this was the day to give online and do online giving. And we raised from beginning to end in about 3 months period of work on that one day, a little over $105,000. And every organization received at least a $100 donation, even if they did nothing other than sign up.
Great. And Rebecca, did you provide the $100, or those were just everybody just got at least that from a donor specifically to their nonprofit?
Well, we had 2 donors that donated to every organization.
Okay.
And so one donor specifically underwrote their $50 fee to participate, and then we had 2 additional donors that gave to everyone. And so at the end of the day, every agency walked away with $100, and regardless of their marketing, and then probably the largest donation to an agency was about $17,000. So it was pretty spread across the 102 agencies. Some received, a couple $1,000, probably on average about $500. But then we had one particular agency that really marketed the day, and we really learned, for this being the first day of giving that we did, we really learned from that organization what they did, how they did outreach to their organizations or to their donors, and so we probably will try and replicate that next year.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Rebecca, or again, any final comments that they'd like to make, or questions for any other speakers?
Yeah, good morning. This is Ryan Crane, Community Foundation of Greater Des Moines. Great for Rebecca. That's some ingenuity. 2 quick questions on that. Did you identify those donors ahead of time to make at least $100 contributions into each of the funds, or was that a nice surprise?
Well, we had contacted our family of donors to let them know that this day was going on. This donor is someone that has a endowed fund at the Community Foundation, and he contacted me and said, I want to participate. How can I do this? Because he wanted to use the distribution from his endowment. And so we ended up doing an online donation for him that was one lump sum, and then we took that contribution from his endowment fund and spread it across the 102 organizations that were part of the Big Give.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it was a very successful day for us. We had weather that day. It was rainy. And we had 6 Hy-Vee locations that hosted us from 7 in the morning till 7 at night at all locations. And
oh, wow.
There was a lesson learned there, too, and that was don't have so many locations. But
yeah.
We'll probably have it at 2 locations this next year, and encourage agencies to have their own on-site locations to draw their donors specifically to their organization.
Yeah. Yeah, I will look to follow up with you on logistics on that, and I'll have a few things to talk with you about, but the second question for kind of benefit of the call would be, what kind of marketing assistance did you engage in? It seems like that could be kind of a niche message from a marketing standpoint. Did you engage with a kind of standard marketing professional in your Siouxland area, or did you find an expert from outside of your area that has specifically worked on these types of campaigns before?
Well, we worked with a gentleman to actually build the website for us out of Columbus, Nebraska, and he had done other big gives. So we worked with Derek Fagan on that piece. And then we have a board member on our board that is with a radio station, and we used a family of 6 radio stations to promote the events. We had a PSA run on one television station, which is our largest NBC station locally. And then we had a gal with Chatterkick that owns Chatterkick that did the agency training on promotions. She put together some social media ads for us. And we had a television newspaper ran a couple of different ads for us. We've got another board member that is with the local journal, and they ran a full-page ad for us the week of the big give, and we did some television promos with talk shows and things like that, both radio and TV talk shows the week of the big give as well. So we had great media exposure. And so first year, I think we thought, let's let people understand what this day is all about. And I think we got that message across. So we hope that maybe we can double our dollars next year or this year.
Yeah, good things. That's all from Des Moines. I just wanted to ask some follow-up. That sounds very interesting, Rebecca. I'll look forward to emailing you later this week about some follow-up items.
Yeah, great. Happy to help.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Rebecca. I think we'll probably close out our call now unless anybody has any last-minute questions. Feel free to email me if you have other information you'd like to share with the group, or if you have other questions, or if I can direct you to any of the speakers as well. So I'll say thank you again to our speakers today, Jenna, Wendy, Elizabeth, and Rebecca, for sharing with us how they have worked to build nonprofit endowments at their foundation in a variety of ways I think we heard about today, which is great. And as a reminder, a full listing of all the topics and recordings from this and past calls, past peer learning calls, can be found on our website. If you click on, the Community Foundations link and then CF links, you can access any of our past calls. And finally, our next peer learning call is scheduled for June 12th. We are doing these quarterly this year, and the topic will be community leadership. So please just look for information regarding this upcoming PLC in the e-newsletter CF Snapshot. So thank you again for joining us on the call, and I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you.